Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. Time for another Fireside Chat. One of my favorite creators, one of my favorite people joining me, Tim Seeley. Tim, it's great to see you, man. Happy holidays.
Good. I'm warming myself by the fire here. See, there we go.
Yeah, I was just telling Tim before we started recording, God, you have so much stuff coming out right now, which is really amazing. And, we're going to touch on some classic stuff, too, everybody. So, if you're a hack slash or revival fan, don't worry, we'll touch on that as well. But so many great books you have coming out, so many great books you've done in the last year. Um, I I gotta say, I love it when good things happen to good people. You seem like you're in demand. You got creator owned stuff, you got licensed stuff. How are you feeling overall about where the career is right now?
Oh, that's a well, that's a question I haven't even considered in so long. I mean, I feel like, yeah, it's like a weird thing where uh, I somewhat was able to free myself up from like the pursuit of things that I felt like I had to do because I had to get, for insurance and stuff like that. Because when I started teaching, that's covered now. Like I have insurance for my family, so it allows me to like take gigs that I think are more tailored towards me to some degree. But then I was followed by a whole bunch of things that were tailored to me that I couldn't turn down. So even though I was like, I could take less stuff, when you offer me like Ninja Turtles versus Godzilla, it's like I can't not do that.
Right.
And there are scenarios where like maybe I should take less work, but I'm also like, there's too much cool stuff. I'm really having trouble turning down X Force or you know what I mean, or Psylocke or something. So, um, I feel good about it. It's a weird thing of being sort of probably overbooked, but also just so happy to work on all this stuff that I would have wanted to do in any scenario, and I didn't have to pursue it, which is nice. I feel like that's a good thing too. Like I get called to do the things I kind of want to do. People know my brand.
Right. Yeah, well, and the other thing is you gotta, like, as a freelancer, you gotta kind of strike when the iron's hot, right? So, you turn something down and it's because you're busy, and then it's like, man, you don't know when that'll come back around, and maybe it never will.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's stuff, I've turned down stuff in the years past where like I kind of I do wonder sometimes like what if I had taken that. And so, you know, certainly you try not to have any, too much regrets because if you make the decision to turn something down, there's probably a good reason.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't want to wonder if I turned down like Rogue Savage Land or something. It's like I'm just gonna do it. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
figure out how to do it. And so yeah, and I feel like part of the thing there's a comfort now I have, which is sort of like I kind of got to do all the creator on stuff that I really wanted to do. Like, so I will still obviously make creator on stuff, but um, now I can be like, I can take some, corporate stuff. It's fun. I can do that. I don't have to feel bad about it. I'll get around to doing some more creator on stuff. I will, but I did all the ones I really wanted to do. So I feel like that's a freedom as well.
Yeah, and the last time that we chatted actually was at San Diego Comic Con, and you're telling me about your trip to the revival set, which is amazing. So that, it came out this last summer on Syfy Channel. Everybody, it's amazing. It's so hard for me to pick a favorite work of yours that you've done, because I love so much of what you've done, from Superman versus Lobo to your recent Vigilante series, which we'll talk about. Obviously, Hack Slash, but man, this one, because it answers so many interesting questions, philosophical questions, and I think the show did a good job of kind of presenting that. Now, obviously, we've
Yeah,
only had one season. We're not sure if we're going to get a second season, and even if you know more than we do, you probably can't say anything,
right.
because that's just the nature of these things. But I thought they did a really good job of mixing kind of the suspense and the mystery with those bigger questions. So, it got really great reviews when it first dropped. What's your sense? You're a little closer to it. What's your sense of how the first season went and how it was received, and how do you feel about it overall?
I mean, I guess my sense of it is it went about as well as it possibly could have. Creatively, I think and like you said, the critical acclaim of it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, I think we're at like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes or something. So like the you know what people probably weren't expecting about the show is that it's like like you said, it's pretty deep, it's philosophical, but it's also funny. It's pretty dark, it's pretty gruesome, and so I think it surprised people in a lot of ways, which that the filmmakers, Luke and Aaron, and they really focused on the tone and getting the vibe, and the casting was incredible. So yeah, I think it went as well as it could. in a world where TV is a shit show.
Yeah.
And so, so like everyone did incredible work. And if this were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, we'd be on season three announcements probably. It's just that everything, you look kind of where we are. Like this show came out this summer. Clearly, all the stuff with Netflix and Warner Brothers, all that stuff was percolating all the way back to the fall, and just all these sort of things that are out of our hands and make everything so hard. That's so it's kind of this. It's like the monkey's paw. Like, oh, I wish we'd get a TV show. Like, you got one, but also just so you know, it's
Yeah.
gonna be during a terrible time for filmed entertainment in general.
Yeah, let's go all the way back. Maybe we should have done this first. There may be people that are tuning in because they know some of your more recent work from Marvel or DC, and they're not, aware of what revival. So, do you still have that elevator pitch in your pocket? How do you, if somebody is not familiar with it, how do you describe it?
Yeah, well, Elevator's an elevator. Revival is it's a comic I did with Mike Norton going back to about 2012. I think we first put it out, and it is a crime horror series set in a small town, Wisconsin, in which a bunch of people come back to life on one day called Revival Day, and the series tracks a cop, and she is tasked with investigating the death of her sister, who is also alive again. So it's sort of a murder mystery, but the murder victim is still alive. So it's set in my hometown. It's very, I guess, honest about living in growing up in small towns and that kind of Wisconsin cultural stuff. So and it ran through about 2016 or so, and then was made into a TV show, which came out on Syfy Network last summer. Started in June and it went through September.
Yeah, what I love about it, you mentioned the kind of the mystery of it, the crime noir of it, but then, like my favorite comics do, it makes you think because, we mentioned those big philosophical questions that kind of grows the story. In a way, the story grows in scope, the causes behind all this and whatever, but at the same time, it gets more intimate in how the behind the scenes stuff and like the bigger entities going on are affecting like individuals. And that's what I love about it. The balance is so great. So I've never asked you about this, but I wonder about that, like how the story grows in scope and becomes this big thing, maybe worldwide societal implications of who we are as a species, but yet affecting these individuals with decisions that have to be made and sacrifices and what have you. I mean, was that built in from the beginning? Because it did go quite like 40 some issues.
Yeah, there's 48 issues total if you count the Chew crossover, which we do. And so, but one of the big influences when Mike and I originally talked about it was I had read the book White Noise by Don DeLillo,
Mm.
which, if you've ever read it, is basically about this family who is caught up in this massive event, but they experience it like we, as normal people living in the world, do. Is that they just hear about it on the news, and they're not the direct cause of this, toxic. They're not directly related to this toxic event as an air pollution thing, and so it's just them trying to sort of figure out what's going on, and then all the issues that reside in this family come to a head, which was a big influence on me. I thought that was a really interesting take on it, but also just the idea. I grew up on zombie stuff, and loved all the Romero stuff, and I felt like the ideas that Romero had done were mostly around the idea of survival. Like, and Kirkman picked that up too with Walking Dead, the comic, and obviously the TV show too. It's about, when everything fails, it's not really about dead people, but it's about like everything fails. What do you become? Then obviously in The Walking Dead, they took it as far as to say like, we are the Walking Dead. Like, people are still alive are the Walking Dead. We're marching towards our doom. And so Mike and I thought, well, what if you asked a different question, about the undead? Like, what if you ask the question of sort of, what is it like to live with people who you had already mourned or you had already moved on from, and this idea of sort of loss and kind of how we think about our own lives. That was the questions we wanted to talk about more than what I had seen done and seen done well in other things. So it was sort of a reaction against those kind of zombie stories.
Yeah, I mean, what if there is no closure? What if there is no death? What if we all could have the potential to come back. Like, how do you, that's so,
just like,
yeah.
and I think part of it is that I think what we really want to absorb is just sort of the idea of how people reacted to coming back. And one of the big plots and one of the big things in the comic is that not everybody is the same. Like obviously in most zombie stories, they're all like running around trying to bite you. And our idea was like, well, people are different in so many ways. Like they would treat living again very differently, right? I mean, some people take it as a chance to do better, and some people take it as a chance to get revenge, and some people take it as just an existential dread because they thought they were going to go to heaven. So there's all these reactions, which was more interesting to me. Also, as much as I love the sort of survival zombie stuff, is like that's about the it's about the people reacting to this thing, not about the people who come back. So I think it allowed us more room to tell different kind of stories than the usual sort of undead / zombie apocalypse setup.
Yeah, so definitely recommend it. Everybody go pick it up. It's available in trade, and obviously the show's available on Peacock for the first season, and hopefully we'll get some news come spring that we're going to get a second season. We'll have to wait and see. Now, one of the other big properties that you're a huge fan of, and when I told one of my buddies that I was having you on, he's like, "Oh, you gotta ask him about He-Man, because he's a huge He-Man stan." So I was like, "Of course, we're going to talk He-Man." So I love what you're doing here, introducing another sort of power with the sort of flaws that you're doing. So we've had, I think the third issue just came out or is about to come out. So, and I know like this was 7-year-old you playing He-Man, making up stories, playing with your toys. So this has to be, and you've done other He-Man stuff before, but just working on He-Man as and Masters Universe as a property, this has to be like a bucket list thing. It seems like you're having a lot of fun because that's coming through in the writing, and I love it. Like you had a line in issue 2 where he's fighting Procrates, which is like this big like rock god, and I love the line. He-Man's like, I'm not a god. I'm just a guy with his cat. Like, that one had me laughing out loud. It was so great. So talk to us a little bit about working on Masters of the Universe.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, Sort of Flaws is kind of the culmination of a lot of the stuff I've been working on Master Universe, which has kind of been crossovers and some of the stuff like I did a tie into the Revelation show, and so this is the first time where I'm getting to just do like a Masters of the Universe series, and that was really important to me because obviously when you're doing a crossover and stuff, you're working within the restraints of a couple different things, and crossovers have to do certain things, right? You just that's how they work. And so this is picking up on a lot of the threads from those stories, but just making a Masters of the Universe story, and really trying to make it like the continuity, I guess, that we're working from here is kind of this universal continuity where it's like all the things that most people generally remember, and then the stuff that's like the coolest part of the fan stuff. It's not just the Filmation cartoon. It's not just the mini comics. It's not just it's everything kind of, with a real focus on like bringing in as much of and I mean this literally the toys as we possibly can. Because I always felt like Master Universe is kind of different than G.I. Joe or Transformers, which had really long comic runs, and Master Universe really didn't. I mean, it had one from DC that Rob David worked on. That was the longest one previous to this, and and that's relatively modern. And so going back to like when the toys were coming out, if you were a 10-year-old kid when I was collecting this stuff at the height right before it ended, it was like they'd introduce these amazing ideas and that shit would just disappear. It'd be like they never, Preternian and all this sort of stuff. So we really wanted to bring in the classic stuff, and then as much of the stuff that we felt like, you wanted to see this your whole life, so we're going to give it to you. But really picking up, and one of the things I really wanted to do with this, and Mattel was awesome about it, was I want to tell a story that I think Master Universe was really good about being about, and as a brand, but also as a story, it was like about a use of power, which, the toys were essentially like selling little boys like, you have the power, and we all went, yeah, screw you, mom, and we were like having fun, and we get to be control, and we're the strongest people, and we could possibly be all that cool stuff, but also the sort of question of, okay, you have power, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was always a big theme of Master Universe. So trying to kind of ask a new question, I think, in this, which is, you know, the original Power Sword gave someone this incredible power, and it chose really well. You know, they choose Prince Adam, and he's this incredible person, and make He-Man, and who's this paragon of morality and goodness, uh, and who isn't really tempted to use it, poorly, and then to switch this around, obviously, having a sword that takes away people's power, the Sword of Flaws, which is essentially the anti-power sword, and then just if you could, it's He-Man always uses power to share, and what if you had some way now you can steal it from other people, and who would do what with that, and that was kind of our big question, and kind of playing up some of the fun stuff, obviously, but also like let's make it as much about something for the era that we live in as possible.
Yeah, and it's amazing. If you're a fan at all of Masters of the Universe, you remember those toys. You can get a chance to see some guys I'd forgotten about. Mechaneck shows up. Photog,
Yeah.
like I'm crossing my fingers for Stinkor. He was always one of my favorite. Guys,
Oh,
looked like a skunk, smelled like a skunk. He was fantastic.
think we're in issue 3, so
Oh,
you're
okay.
wasting
So, okay, great. I haven't read. Yeah, I've read 1 and 2. I haven't read 3 yet. So that's music to my ears. But the other part of this, there's no way this works because of just kind of the nature of Masters of the Universe, the type of story you're telling, without a really great artist that can capture that kind of feel of what you're doing and make it feel a little more sophisticated. Like this is not for little kids. It's really for all ages. Plenty for me to enjoy, plenty for younger readers to enjoy. So you got Freddie Williams II working on this. That has to be a dream come true to have him because he's a huge Masters of the Universe
Yeah.
guy as well. So what's it been like working with Freddie on this?
I mean, we did Injustice Master Universe together and Turtles Master Universe together.
Yeah.
So we have like a pretty good shorthand on doing Master Universe stuff. And the great thing about this is that, and Riley is the artist on the next art too, Riley Brown. And one of the things about if you work on Master Universe, you kind of have to know it. Like, and so both Freddie and Riley are people that can bring uh, their fandom to it too, but also like make it new and make it interesting. And yeah, Freddie draws everyone he draws looks like a He-Man guy.
Yeah.
Like if Freddie drew your mom, she would look like
Yeah.
a little squat, little powerhouse fire plug. So yeah, he just managed to match it so well. And I don't have to like spend a lot of time describing stuff with either of these guys, especially Freddie. I can just be like, yeah, they roll up in a Bashosaurus and it swings a big mat. He'll just be like, okay.
Got it. Yeah.
But yeah, he's just and he's an action storyteller above everything, which you need Master Universe. So one of the things Freddie will do is like go through and cut my just talkie panels and make double page spreads and stuff, which I'm always just like, yeah, as long as you move it, don't cut it. We are totally good. So I just I benefit from his awesome action storytelling skills.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Riley's great at the action too. So I'm really I love Riley. So yeah, I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job as well. Well, being that you've been on, and this is another one of those things. The Masters of the Universe stuff you've done, I've seen be really well received, and it seems like, and it's a great community. Yeah, there's some, as always, there's going to be some kind of, the loud minority that are, complaining about it because they want it to be exactly what they think it should be, and it's like, you can't go back and relive your childhood, dude. Because I know, like Kevin Smith's Revelations, there was a little bit of pushback on that and what have you. But leaving that aside, it feels like you've really been embraced by the community because again, like this stuff, you love this stuff. So what's the reception been like for this particular series, The Sword of Flaws?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, it's weird because I've had this happen a couple times where, if you work on like X-Men or Batman, it's like that's the Wednesday crowd, right? Like that's the people they go to the store. You hear if people hate it or they love it, you hear about it by Wednesday at 1.
Yeah, right.
But with horror comics and Masters of the Universe, these are like they're very dedicated fans, but they get things at a little bit. They're not like going in on Wednesday. They're not trained in that way. So
right.
Usually it's crazy because it'll take. I mean, like now I'm hearing about Turtles and Master Universe, which is like came out in the summer. So, but that's kind of how it always is. So And for me, it's usually like at cons, when I really kind of hear from the readers and stuff. So, um, or when I still go to Master Universe stuff. Like I go to the big flea markets and go shop for He-Man toys. That's when I'll see Master Universe fans because they'll be like, "Hey, there's Seeley's buying," and I'll look in my hands. I got like some goddamn big pile of Origins figures or whatever. So, but it's like a slightly different reaction. Like you can kind of go be quiet for a while and then you'll hear stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I hope everybody's picking it up, like, especially if you were a fan, because like you had said, you're doing such a great job of incorporating all these different stuff. Because yeah, some of the stories, like and some of the characters specifically created for the cartoon, like Orca, right? Like you didn't see him really before that, but then he's become such a part of it. He's there, whatever. And also, I was thinking about this the other day, because you did a GI Joe comic too that we'll talk about in a little bit. Like back when we were kids and saw those cartoons, had there be like the little kind of morality lesson at the end?
Yeah,
That has completely gone away. Like they don't even care. Like, and I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, do they not care about like trying to teach kids lessons, or they just know the internet's going to ruin it, and not teach them? They're not learning anything anymore.
Well, you know what it is? It's actually sillier than that. But back in the day, you couldn't have a cartoon that advertised a toy unless this was an FCC thing, unless you had some kind of educational.
Oh, gotcha.
So to get around that, they would add an educational value to the end, and it was always an absolute like, "Yep, here's some shit we threw on. Here's kids," and be like, we got nothing. But it's funny. Like, I actually think that's an important part of.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of branded it, as what it is, at the time, like you said. And so I sort of appreciated it. Yeah, it might be, a little preachy and a little hokey, but, to your point earlier about one of the themes that ran through Masters of the Universe was this idea of, if you have power, if you have the ability to do good and to change things for the better, you sort of have an obligation to do so,
Absolutely. Which is, yeah, I mean, I think of, like, sometimes I'll watch a modern cartoon like kid, like Gumball or Teen Titans Go or something, and they're funny and they're really entertaining, but they're just so nihilistic,
Yeah.
like it's really dark shit sometimes. But then I also remember it's like, well, we had Bugs Bunny and there was no morals of Bugs Bunny. They weren't selling toys, so they didn't have to. Like Bugs Bunny could just totally be horrible to people and menace, ruin people's lives, and it was funny and we were okay with it because there was no action figure.
Yeah.
He made G.I. Joe sold plastic, so they had to do that stuff. But yeah, and I actually use in a Masterverse or Master of the Multiverse. I'm forgetting my own He-Man stuff. I put the Filmation He-Man in there, and there was a whole plot point of which he used the lessons that he taught. In the end, saved the universe. So it was an important part of the his personality was that he gave you these hokey lessons. He just would stop and give a lesson. So my views on it are probably enshrined in paper at this point.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, whenever anybody thinks of the '80s GI Joe cartoon, you can't help but think, that tagline at the end. Now we know, and knowing is half the battle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every time, every episode.
Yeah, totally. What did Transformers have? Like, and you can change too. I don't know.
Yeah, something. I didn't watch as much as I collected the Transformers toys probably more than any others, but I watched the least of the Transformers cartoon. Like I probably watched the most GI Joe and then He-Man and then Transformers.
Yeah.
But it was my younger brother that was the He-Man guy. He had all the figures.
And when I was a kid, I didn't collect the Transformers toys, but or watch the cartoon, but I was a religious reader of the Marvel comic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have that entire series at some point or another. I gave it to a buddy's kid in the early 2000s, which I also regret. But it was like I love that comic. Big robots punching the shit out of each other was definitely my thing.
Yeah, I remember buying it off the rack. It was so me. I mean, I hadn't even heard of the toy or the cartoon. I just saw the comic, loved the cover, that classic Sienkiewicz cover, and bought. And if you recall, like it was supposed to be like a 4-issue mini, and then they immediately it sold so well, they immediately turned it to an ongoing. So yeah, it was fantastic. Well, I guess that's a good segue talking about some Marvel books. We'll talk about another book you seem to be having a ton of fun doing in this Age of Revelation event that's going on with the X-Men. You're writing the Undeadpool, which I like as soon as I saw you were writing this, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, you
Tim's
know what you're gonna
take
get.
on Deadpool, but he's gonna do something weird. I just know he is, and you totally did. But I love it because here's a guy that's a character that's so over the top, and in a way, it feels like almost everything has been done with him. But you've come up with something like completely different. When we talk about zombies, so let everybody know what's about the premise for your Undeadpool here.
Well, so it takes place in the Age of Revelation, which is a sort of future X-Men universe. But there's a virus going around, and when Wade gets it, it essentially causes his healing factor to go crazy. So he's like where Jason Voorhees, like he has to kill and eat teenagers to to survive. And then when he basically levels out his healing factor, he returns to normal Wade. But then there's a slow change back to where Jason Voorhees. So he's like a slasher by night, I guess, kind of. And so he's paired with these teenagers after essentially one teenager after he kills all the rest of them, and is trying to protect her and get her to the X-Men. So it's it's like a slasher meets mercenary sort of Wade Deadpool story. And I tried to do the thing because I'm with you on it. I love the character. I've always loved the character. Have his first appearance when it came out, but I think he loses stakes, if he's too wacky, which it can be super entertaining, but like it loses stakes over time where, there's no effect on him. So I've been thinking about that a long time. And so when they asked me, Marvel's the one that gave me the title on Deadpool, and they said, "Well, what do you do with this?" And I was like, "Oh, I got it. I know exactly what that is." So it's like the he's trying to maintain this levity to him, but he knows how horrible it is for him. And I wanted to kind of go back to the Joe Kelly stuff because when I was maybe 18, 19, there was a Joe Kelly. It was 1997. He did an annual where you find out the sort of origin of Wade, and it was that how he got the name Deadpool was essentially that they would bet. They would all bet on who would survive, and he and his friends, and it was so dark, but it was so funny. And so I wanted to be so that they're in this also is that Wade is betting on which of these kids is going to survive. So pretty twisted.
Yeah, I mean, I love because you're right. You nailed it right on the head when you said, yeah, he gets so like crazy, and he's always going to heal. So where are the stakes and what have you? And the fact that he's doing this, but yet like the whole idea of the mercenary is the heart of gold, and he's going to generally do the right thing, even though he's killing people or whatever. But the fact that when he kind of zombies out, he's like aware, and
Yeah,
you said it. Yeah, he's a passenger. His body takes over. He has no control over it. For him, for somebody that tries to take things so lighthearted and kind of that's how he deals with the trauma of what he's gone through is by cracking jokes. For him to have to kind of ride that around,
yeah,
it's
grim.
so interesting. It's really interesting kind of character development for him.
Yeah, and I've written Deadpool before, but I felt like this was the version that I would do, if I was on the ongoing series. Like I'd really try to push it'd still be funny, but there's consequences to being Deadpool. That's kind of my favorite version of that character.
Yeah, we saw Cable show up in the second issue, and those characters have history. So was that something that you knew you were going to play with that as well? Because when he shows up, when Cable shows up, you kind of get a sense of, and even Wade himself is kind of comparing like that they've been through kind of similar things,
Yeah.
and Cable's not kind of the version that we're used to, at least not at the beginning. But then as the story goes on, he starts to look a little bit more familiar. But he's clearly going through some stuff as well. So, like the interplay between those two characters, I think it's fascinating that they had that Cable Deadpool miniseries, one of the first things that they showed up in way back when. Are they
Yeah.
two characters that you love to kind of play off each other?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did it for certain in this one was where I got to sort of play up some of the ideas I've had for them for since I was a teenager probably. But like the idea that they're essentially both, um, I think of them both as they're weapons for other people, and this is the sort of exploration of that they're both turned into, uh, they're not in control of their own bodies at different times. It's sort
Mm-hmm.
of the bad metaphor is the movie Lady Hawk. You ever see that movie?
Oh yeah.
There's like the lovers. One is a horse, not a horse, a hawk during the day, and the other one's a fox at night or whatever. And so they can never be together.
Right. Yeah.
That was my part of my pitch was like, these two love each other clearly, but they can't be together. They can't hang out. They can't be partners because they're both switching back and forth between losing their autonomy.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about, and the other thing that I love about the fact that you're getting a chance to do this, we talk about being in the Age of Revelation, this event that's going on, kind of a spiritual successor in a lot of ways to the Age of Apocalypse from way back in the day, 1995. But it's so great because it gives you kind of a, there's less continuity, there's less kind of guardrails, if you will, and it gives you a little bit more freedom as a creator. So. Is that something that you really enjoy, getting to do things that maybe you wouldn't get to do in kind of regular continuity?
Yes, but also it bothers me because, like, I enjoy working this. I think Jed came up with a great scenario for this, and I think there's lots of great moments for that comes out of the story. And then the hard part about working on it is you're like, but also they can't just go to a taco place and go sit down because the world is at war and it's all fucked up,
Right.
So the things that that normally I would do, I can't use that sort of regular everyday life stuff. It just that I can tolerate. I'm working through it, but like you can tell I'm frustrated where I'm just like, you can't just have a fucking burrito, man.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right. I didn't notice that about it until you said that it feels kind of a little more amped up or kind of, it doesn't have that slice of life stuff that is your trademark that brings in the humor or makes you stop and think and you can relate to the characters a little bit more.
I tried to do it and I put in the scene where they go to Christmas, Indiana.
Yeah, Santaville, yeah.
Santaville, and then you get this sort of like, it's them trying to recapture it in the same way I'm trying.
Yeah.
So I think like you kind of get, and it works for a while, and then they obviously have to come back to the world that they live in.
Yeah, and you're paired up with a fantastic collaborator, Carlos Magno, who I don't hear enough people talk about. This guy is a superstar in the making. I know. First time I saw his work was on the Timeless Kang special that he did, which was amazing. But he's just killing it.
Yeah, he's awesome. I worked with him back when I was an editor at Heavy Metal, so like I knew his stuff. And when they threw him out as a possibility, I was like, that's dead on for this. I mean, he can do crazy detail, he can do action. He's been around for a while. I think he's just one of those guys that, if you put him on the right ongoing and just let him cook for like 9 months, everybody would go, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But there's like a host of artists, I think now, where you see them more on like 1 to 3 issues at a time. And if you saw them for, if they were Brian Hitched for a while, like you could, see them on a year's worth of books, everybody would be saying their name.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's everybody puts so much detail now, and it's just a different market. Somebody's not going to draw 30 consecutive issues of the same book anymore. It's just not.
I wish it could be done that way. It does. You're exactly right. I think there's a perception that the fans wouldn't dig on somebody who can draw things a little faster, but like, I don't know, man. Daniel Warren Johnson's pretty quick, and people love him. So I think there's got to be a way. There's a world where you're able to get those things done without dying for it, and like I know for me personally, as I've gotten older, I've gotten faster, and the technology allows me to I don't have to scan and erase all this shit. The stuff that would hold me back, like on Friday, I'm just fucking erasing and scanning, and I don't have to do that if I use digital for most of my stuff. So I wish we could go back to it. I would love to see longer runs from some of these people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even people that are notoriously fast, like Dan Mora, though, you don't see him stay. And part of that is because they're so good. It's like event book comes out, you want to kind of move them over there, move them over here, or what have you. But
Transformers and Deadpool, Batman, and it's like
Justice League Unlimited. Like what? Yeah, when I heard he was doing Transformers, I was like, wait, what? He's still doing this DC stuff, guys. You ever see that movie with Michael Keaton? Was it called Duplicity, where he like clones? Multiplicity. Yeah. Dan Mora's got some copies of himself. That's the
Yeah.
only way he's doing
Or
it.
like 6 arms, he's like a spider dude.
Yeah. 100%. Well, you talked about being an artist. You still draw from time to time, and one of the books that you most recently were working as an artist, along with co-plotting it and writing it with Tony Fleeks, was Local Man, which, if you're kind of my age, my generation, when the image stuff was first coming out, and you haven't read this, then oh my God, are you in for a treat? Because this, again, it's like I said earlier, so hard for me to choose the favorite thing of yours that you've done, but man, did this one speak to me, because not only was it incredible. Yeah, look at that. Oh my God. Look at that. Look at that. All 27 issues. Amazing.
Yeah. Get it all pretty.
But it's so amazing because it does capture the feel and kind of the over the top, so Tim drew the backup every issue, which kind of flashed back, and it's a story about this guy who was in one of those brigade or young blood type celebrity super teams back in the day, but now he's come back to his hometown. He's fallen on hard times. He isn't generally liked, and there's so many kind of lessons to be learned. Just because you're a superhero doesn't mean you're right. Just because you have power doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean you're a good person. Like all of that, but with the bombast of the 1990s. So talk a little bit about coming up with the idea for this with Tony, and again wanting to find that balance between making it fun but having something to say that is kind of important.
Yeah, I mean it was a weird project. It was I had a bunch of sketches of this character for Crosschat specifically, who was based on a character I made up as a kid. So I had them like on my phone. I'd sketched a bunch of things, but I went to the Long Beach Comic Con in 2019 and ended up sitting with Fleece, who I knew through friends. Everybody in comics knows each other, but we were sitting next to each other at a chicken and waffle joint, and we just got talking, and he and I get along really well. We have pretty much the same interests in comics. We're like the only people on Earth who both have a full collection of Hall of Heroes comics and Eternity comics and Near X and all this stuff that we loved in the 90s. That was like, we were so hardcore that not only did we love Spawn and Youngblood, we were also like, and then give me Vortex and fucking Elementals and all this other shit too.
Yeah.
So, but I thrown him a couple ideas, but I showed him Crosscheck and some other stuff. And he's like, I want that one. Let's do that book. And then we kind of, we threw sketches back and forth for a bit, and then pandemic. And then, we both went through some shit. Tony went through some shit. I went through some shit. And it even became like more imperative for us to do the book. And so, Tony will say the same thing. Essentially, Local Man was our therapy. We would sort of pass stuff back and forth and just pour, I think, everything into it. We were feeling nostalgic. We're stuck at home. The world is shit. We were feeling frustrated. We were, we had both gone through divorces at various times, and we're kind of putting like all our regrets and all our sort of, feelings about our lives into this idea that we're also re-examining a lot of, the things we loved. And I think, a big part of those early image books is that they are made by, as you said, bombastic drawing teenagers, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys were, they were young, and so going back and reading those and kind of being able to really love them and also be like, what were you guys thinking?
Right.
And so we try to like put all those things into it. Like it is both a critique and a love letter. It is a superhero comic. It is a crime comic. It is, it's all kinds of stuff. I think in the end, it is a pure as a creator-owned comic as I could ever possibly make. It has also typically been very difficult to tell people what the story is. You're like, he was a 90s guy, but then he did this. It's like, I need like we never figured out the shortest possible hook for Local Man. But it exists. It was made. It's a big fat book, and if you want to read it, you can get it all in one big chunk.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would think, kind of a hard concept to sell to somebody who wasn't buying those image books, back in the 90s and kind of understands that bombast.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much value in it, the journey that Crosscheck Xavier goes on. And I love that this isn't like a happy ending, but I love the ending. It's not all wrapped up in a nice, neat bow where, he gets the girl and saves the day or whatever. But he's in a better place so in a way, it's like one of the most realistic endings, and I appreciated the ending, and I sort of feel like, and I don't know if you've heard from fans of it, they're like, oh, we want more, we want more. I don't want it. I like the way that it ends. I don't know that I necessarily want anymore. I think it ends in a good spot. So how did you and Tony feel about leaving it where you left it?
That's a good question. I mean, it was interesting because I also, then by the time the book was coming out, obviously we're all back from the pandemic, we're back in the world, and it was interesting because I teach at a college, so my college students would recognize that it was a '90s thing, and they totally understood that because a lot of them had either grown up with parents, and this is how old we are, that
Yeah.
parents who had still had those books, like because everybody bought '90s comics. There are households all across America where in the basement is a pile of fucking Youngblood and Spawn and X Force,
Yeah, Savage
But
Dragon.
like,
Yeah.
it was weird. It was weird. Like the kids kind of understood it, and so it was like that was interesting. There's like a generation of people that don't like it, and all this sort of stuff. And it kind of, I guess, when we were talking about like, we should wrap this up so that we can work on things that pay more money, and we can come back to this eventually if we want to. But part of it was we were like, it has to be about us hanging on to this, right? It had to be about like us saying, we have to hand this over to some degree, which
Yeah.
that's why the last story is like a bunch of Gen Z superheroes, and the initial sort of I think impulse for Gen Xers or whatever Zennials or whatever Tony and I are, it's just like this bullshit, like shit on everything the kids like, oh, it's not good. It's like, no, man, you're fucking old. Like, so we really try to push ourselves to like just go into their world and elevate it and make fun of it in the same way we'd make fun of our own stuff, but not put it down. And I think, I think you're right. Like to some degree, it hits where it needs to. Certainly could do more stories. We have a lot of them, I think, in our heads. Every time we start working on something else, we have Mothman ideas. But it is a story about generations too, right? It's about knowing your place in time and your place in culture, and it's also sort of about your place in morality, which I would say my generation has given up its right to tell other people what their morals should be, and Zoomers had to deal with our terrible choices. So that's got to be part of it too. It's like this. This is also about the kids saying, "Well, we fucking hate the world that you made us, so we're going to change it." You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, our generation's we get so often get called like the forgotten generation, right? Because the boomers that just will never let go. We're gonna have to pry the power from their cold dead hands or what have you. And now the generations after us are like, no, we're the ones that are gonna take over. And that's what's sort of interesting as well about the end of Local Man. It's like he sort of recognized, like you said, it's time to pass it on to the next generation and take a step back, and that's really what that final issue is about. And so again, I think that the ending is perfect. But that being said, if you have more ideas, I mean, you could always go back and do stuff in between.
Yeah,
I mean?
for sure. Well, there's so many other characters in it too that we
That's
that
true.
we fell in love with, and there's like the character of the Slick 2.0, which was just like she was just in the background and she kept taking over scenes, and it was just an interesting book because it was also something that we didn't plot it super heavily. We really just did it, and part of it was because it's a book about reacting to each other's work, kind of. So like that's one of the big strengths of the book. It feels kind of light and sort of effortless, but because we didn't, there's no hammering anything into a square peg. Like it's just a whole lot of like reacting and sort of moving and changing things, and so there are characters in there that we came up with that took over the book that I would love to go into because I didn't even know we were going to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the things I love about comics is that improv sort of aspect of it, which you have to be for the corporate books because all of a sudden you're part of a crossover, you didn't know it, you're like, oh, okay. And certainly like in Revival, Mike and I really plotted that pretty heavily, or at least we knew exactly where it was going.
Right.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, and the other thing is, being that it was such a nostalgia book in a lot of ways, you guys got to do some really fantastic homage covers. Like every issue, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this one, I remember that one. So yeah, really, really fantastic. Well, I got to touch on this other one, which a lot of people that know your work came to it first from this book, and it's been a while since we've had a hack slash, and it kind of goes into what we were saying because we've had this conversation I think a couple years ago at San Diego Comic-Con when you brought the incredibly talented Zoe Thorogood in to do a hack slash story. So in a way, handing off to the next generation, but. Yeah. It's been a little bit since we've had hack slash, so any plans to have another series either by yourself or another creator? And again, this is kind of your Buffy inspired, one of the first things that you did. If you're not familiar with it, everybody, it really is, this idea. And the other thing I love about it is I see so many echoes in Something Is Killing Children, which is wildly popular with what you kind of were doing in hack slash back in the day.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean. James has probably said as much, but
yeah.
Did it with much more commercial sensibilities and much less butt shots. I'm unable to make things without butt shots. But yeah, I mean, I have another idea. I actually, it involves some legal wrangling, and I finally got that all wrangled. So it's not a crossover specifically or anything, but yes, I'm back. I'm gonna do another one for sure. That's my first child, so I never kick her out of the house. We always have room for Cassie in our lives. So.
Yeah, and again, I mean, there are people that know you're like, they just associate you with this, despite all the things that you've done, and you've done a ton. We started off talking about that, and we've covered a lot of books here. We're going to talk about a few more. It's like, but this is the one that matters to them most. Do you still get that sense at like conventions and when you get a chance to interact with fans, you have people that come up and this is the first, hey, when am I getting more hack slash?
Oh, well, yeah, always. I mean, my wife always laughs about it because we'll go to New York Comic Con and, still, majority of books people bring me are hack slash books. So yeah, I'll never know why that is, like what about it? That one, I guess maybe it's the first, and it's been a long time. I don't know. And it's not like, other books I do sell more, do more numbers, but yeah, it's just something about hack slash. I guess it's just the way it is.
Yeah,
and I don't complain. I'm happy to have. When I was a kid, what I wanted. Speaking of going back to the '90s image styles, I wanted to make Savage Dragon for myself. I wanted like an ongoing series about some character that could go on forever. And I'm not as much of like a super. I like superheroes obviously, but I knew it was going to be like a horror thing or a B movie thing. So I got what I wanted, and I have that book. And so I always come back to it. I'm always happy to do it. I'm happy to let other people do it. It's just a book. It can be anything, which is great. It can be serious. It can be silly. It can be scary. It can be sexy. It can be all those things. It's super flexible.
Yeah, and she's a great character, and the supporting cast you came up with, it's almost like lightning in a bottle, because it's one of those titles that again, like even I do it. Like when I hear your name, it's one of the titles that is going to pop up in my head every time because it is so, from what I know of you, so sort of quintessentially you, with the sarcasm and with the humor and sexual innuendo at times. Like it's you between two covers in so many ways. So yeah, it's great to hear that there's more on the way.
It's just direct. It's just. But yeah, and it's one of those things too where, this is what you want to be known for is like something that you made up. So I'm always happy. It has the image eye on it, which for me was always that goal. Like. So yeah, I'm so lucky to have it, and also it took so much fucking work.
yeah, no doubt. Well, you actually worked on one of my favorite characters of all time in comics earlier this year, and that being Vigilante. But this is such a different version of Vigilante. So I've never actually watched the Peacemaker show because I've had people that know me tell me, because the Adrian Chase Vigilante, that 50-issue run is so like beloved by me. They're like, don't go watch this, it'll ruin the. I get that it's a different character, but what you and Mitch did here was so funny, and I really enjoyed it. Like for what it was, I can completely accept that it's a different version of the character or what have you. But going back to this idea of just having fun, making comics with your friends. But the other thing that struck me was the fact that this is a DC book.
No doubt.
I don't know that you guys get away with everything you get away with if it's not for the fact that you got James Gunn in your corner as well.
Oh yeah.
So, this got announced last year, 2024, at New York Comic Con, and then you guys just knocked it out of the park. Between, I remember at WonderCon this year, Mitch showing me on his phone, the issue hadn't come out, but the condom scene, he's like, "This is what I'm drawing." I'm one Eisner says, "This is what I'm drawing." How much fun was it to do James Gunn version of Vigilante?
Oh man, I love. It's crazy too because the reason that this version of the book exists was that when the first episode of Peacemaker came out, I saw it and I went, "Holy shit!" That version of Vigilante, that is the most me DC character that has ever been created. So I think like the next day I emailed Katie Huber and just said, "You got to let me do something with Vigilante." Like that, he's a psychopath who looks like a slash insult Jeffrey Dahmer. But he's like got severe like ADHD or something. He's a loser kind of guy who he works at a restaurant. It's like all these things are so funny that they're so weird and so crazy. So I pitched it like right off the bat, and they kind of said, "Oh, that's interesting. Well, we were thinking about doing something," and then it took like 2 years to come together because we had to wait for obviously pandemic shit, and then James was working on the Becoming the Guy at DC film. So, but it was like the thing that I did where I said, "This is me. You gotta let me do it," and then it happened. It never fucking happened. So. Well, yeah, I got to work with Mitch, who's one of my oldest friends in comics, and like you said, he's a guy who has won Eisners, and he was drawing, full condoms that spill on fucking Vigilante's lap. So,
Yeah, I mean, was Mitch somebody that you had in mind? Like once you started getting down the path, you knew you're going to get a chance, or did DC? So like, how did Mitch get involved in the project?
I don't remember the exacts, but at some point it just took so long to get going because of all this stuff. And then at one point, Katie said, "Well, here's a list of people that might be available, depending on the schedule." And Mitch was on the list. I was like, "That's Mitch."
Yeah.
Before I even emailed Katie back, I just called Mitch. I was like, "Dude, do you want to do fucking Vigilante with me?" And it was like, "Oh yeah, sign me up." So it was just one of those things that Kismet came together, and partly, in comics, everybody knows each other, and so having that connection, being able to just call a guy like Mitch and be like, "Hey, I don't know, Tom's not getting you any scripts right now, so how about you draw this for me instead?" And then I text Tom and say, "Haha, I stole your boyfriend," and so yeah. But I can't believe, like you said, I can't believe DC let us make it. It's wildly offensive. It's got really gross nudity, horrible violence. Like it is all over the place.
Yeah, but the thing was, like, even like I said, as Adrian Chase being my favorite, version, the kind of the classic one from kind of the main universe or what have you. But you brought in things that were familiar, like Saber and Cannon and what have you. Yeah. So as a huge, Adrian Chase Vigilante fan, I appreciated that. Like there were recognizable things for me, which just made it in a way that much more absurd and that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's also a thing I don't think anybody thought I was going to do, was that I think people read this book and be like, "Oh, it's disconnects." Like, no, I read that fucking series. I read the Adrian Chase series, the Marv Wolfman series, the Teen Titans. Like, I know who his villains are. I know, So, but a big part of it was the original pitch I was going to tell. When I told Mitch the idea was like, I want it to be Saber and Cannon. And I want one of the lines in the comic to be, "Gay hitman, how progressive! I'm gonna fucking kill you anyway." That's like a line that I wrote, I think, in the first pitch, and then but we did get it in there. It's in the last issue.
That's awesome. Was the process any different, being that these were kind of inspired by the versions that James Gunn came up with? Because James is credited as kind of a co-plotter or what have you for both the double feature.
Yeah, we had to send it to James, and he made notes and had ideas on stuff. But of course, by the time he was so busy running DC Universe and directing Superman, so by the time towards the end, it was kind of like, well, I trust you guys not to do anything I wouldn't do. Yeah. But I mean, what James Gunn wouldn't do is what,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting, because that's the thing that I love about the fact that he is kind of the one that's steering the ship over there, on the DC film side of things, is that he's so much one of us. He's like a true comic fan.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So
he can do things that are like gross and offensive and stuff, but it's always sincere, which I think is
yeah.
which also that's my style as well. So like James and I came up on some similar things. Like when he was doing trauma stuff, I was also doing trauma stuff. He was writing screenplays, but I was designing stuff for them and shit. So we kind of come through the same filter, I guess, which is like this gross, sincere, indie sort
Yeah.
of thing. So, uh, but I like one of the things I felt like I could sincerely do is that I could channel his voice. I was pretty sure I could do it. I think it comes across. And if you haven't seen the show, though, it is genuinely great. If you like this version of Vigilante, like he's all that more in the show.
Yeah, I mean, similar sensibilities for sure. Same type of sensibilities, and also love the Peacemaker Try Hard series as well. I mean, Rex, the Eagly story is fantastic as well. But yeah, the Punisher Tries Hard is another one that kind of captures that sensibility as well.
Kyle, yeah, count it down.
Yeah, Kyle. Well, I mentioned earlier, we talked a little bit about G.I. Joe. You did this Cold Slither one shot for them, and it has a little essay in the back that I think talked about the fact that you were started out as a He-Man guy, and it was your brothers that were collecting the G.I. Joes because they were just regular clothing that they wore. That's the cool. But I was highly anticipating this coming out because I got a chance at San Diego Comic Con this year to interview Gus Rios, who is the real life musician who got it to sort of cosplay and bring Zartan to life, which was really fun. He was getting like emotional when we were talking because it was the night after the concert, because they did a Cold Slither concert. Hasbro put on a Cold Slither concert, and just the appreciation that he had because he collected GI Joe as a kid. And he was just amazing to talk to, and it was so great. So I don't know if you got a chance to meet him, but I loved what you did with this. This is a really great one shot that kind of captures the feel and celebrates Cold Slither in a way, but at the end the sort of good guys win in a way, which I appreciated, which you kind of expect with an '80s cartoon. Go back to those lessons we were talking about before. So talk a little bit about coming onto this project and how it came about.
Yeah, this was so I'm friends with Josh Williamson. We've been friends for years, and I've been reading his GI Joe stuff. And this came up as because they were doing the toys in the event at San Diego. Actually, this was all tied together that they wanted to do the comic for it, and Josh was too busy for it. But also, he admitted this was like his one blind spot of GI Joe. Like Cold Slither is Josh's only GI Joe blind spot. So Ben Abernathy me even is like, hey, do you have any feelings about Cold Slither? I was like, do I have feelings about Cold Slither? When we worked at Devil's Due back in the day, there's a guy who was one of the editors, production guys, named Sam Will. And Sam is the biggest G.I. Joe fan on earth. He owns a toy store here in Chicago called Toy de Jour. Back in the day, Sam had an idea to do a Cold Slither comic because that was his favorite stuff. So we had those conversations about Cold Slither over many lunches, back in the early 2000s about what we would do with Cold Slither. So when Ben, asked if I could do something, I was like, I have an idea right off the bat. I instantly knew what to do with it. But I also, I definitely knew it was going to be about, picking up from the episode of the cartoon. But there's all this stuff in the cartoon that you could that totally plays now. Like, they used it was an AI that wrote that song in the original cartoon. They used an algorithm to put it in your brain, like all this stuff. I was like, hey, holy shit, this anticipated 2025 perfectly. But then, and as a story, I just wanted it to be about like kind of that these guys are. It's similar to Local Man in a way in that it's about these guys who kind of held on a little too long, and they like now they're older and they whatever they thought they were rebelling against, they got it, and they realized it sucks, so they decided to destroy that too, which I kind of felt like is about the most Gen X thing I could possibly think of.
Yeah, 100%. Did you get a chance to go to the concert?
I've missed both of them. There was one at New York and at San Diego Con, but I'm sure you're aware of this. When you go to Comic Con as a freelancer, you go where the meetings are.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
in both cases, I missed it because of meetings. But
I was in the same boat. I had other commitments and I didn't get to go, but I was glad I got a chance to interview Gus. Did you get a chance to meet him at all?
I didn't get to I didn't talk to Gus, but Ben, connected me to some of the people that were working on the toy stuff and everything. So yeah, it's as far as earworms to get in your head, the original song is the most horrifically catchy
Yeah.
things of all time. So when I was working on that, the comic it was in my head every day. I was listening to the music, the new versions. They had sent me the new recordings of them. So like for 2 or 3 weeks, I just had those songs playing in my head all the time.
Yeah, and everybody, I encourage you, if you didn't check out my interview with Gus from San Diego, go back and look it up because, again, he gets a little emotional, but he's talking about writing all these songs and how much, it meant to him. And I mean,
Yeah, he did a great job.
yeah, I mean, this guy, he's been, a musician, heavy metal musician for like 25 years or something. It's been his whole life. And this is kind of the culmination, which really says something about, how much, I mean, he had a cobra tattoo on his wrist, and it wasn't like he went and got that after he got this gig. It was already there. He already had it because that's how much he loved Cobra. So
we used some of the songs in the book. There's a concert scene where we pulled.
yeah,
There's a Thunder Machine song, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff. I recommend it too. The surprising levels of dedication, skill to this cartoon concert album that they did.
it was amazing. And I guess the guy that wrote the episode was there, and Gus got to meet him backstage and everything. Yeah, it was such a joy to see that it was like a lifelong dream come true in so many ways. Well, let's finish up with another one of your books that is just kicked off over at Ignition Press. No Place, which I've only had a chance to read the cold open. I have the first issue. I just haven't had a chance. I was trying to find time to read it this weekend. But I love this concept that you came up with, and I loved what we got in the cold open. So, we've all read those stories, right? We've seen the movies or what have you, where it's some kind of fantastical fantasy realm, and some usually, preteens or young teens get sucked into the world, and they find a way to kind of save the day or whatever. And the story has never been told. What happens when they come back to Earth and they're no longer kind of the heroes, the saviors? They're just kind of the regular old, person that you sit next to in biology or whatever. I love that concept, but then you've gone even beyond that with this idea of an organization that maybe is kind of sort of keeping track of them for reasons. So, and Ignition Press seems like, just a fantastic way to create comics with people that have been on the other side, like Jeremy Hahn, and really kind of know how to get the best creatively out of people. So what has been your experience bringing No Place to life and working at Ignition Press? And if you have heard anything about the reception of the first issue, go ahead and share that with us as well.
Yeah, this one. So I've known Jeremy Hahn for, I think, I met him in 2000. So what, 25 years. So we have sat together at cons so many times, had many a cocktail. But he started telling me about this idea of starting a comic company probably 7 years ago. And so we've been talking about what would become Ignition for a long time. And I directed him to like a movie producer I knew to help him set up some stuff. And then he went and got investors. And this is pure Hahn. It is all Jeremy stuff. And he brought in, the best collaborators, and Phil Savlik, Jamie, and Maggie. So, I told him whenever he got this thing set up, I was like, I'll make a comic for you, whatever you want, anytime. And he just told me to go nuts. So Stefano Simeone, who's an artist I know, apparently I only work with Stefano's because this would be my third one, I think. But he had emailed me at one point and said, "Hey man, write me something." And I looked at his art and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I wrote him this, basically, because he could do these like really beautiful light things. Like it was all these dancing fairies and all this shit. And I was like, God damn it, I want to ruin that, So like the story was kind of like the kid who gets to go off to, in our story, she goes to this place called Mayuela. It's like this you know, got a giant jungle place, and she's got a flying tiger, and she can do all this cool shit. And then she comes back and has to go back to the world, and everybody thinks she's been gone and kidnapped, and her parents who are immigrants are dealing with already being outsiders in this community and stuff. So, and then now they've got this kid who disappeared, and there's all these questions. So it's like kind of a darker take on that. And then yes, we bring in the organization called the Nether Operations, which is the No and No Place, and they hire her, and so her boss. It's revealed, I believe, by issue 1. Well, it's in 0 too, but by 1, it's revealed that her boss is Dorothy Gale from the Wizard of Oz, and so you see this kind of expanded world of all these characters that were in those kind of stories. There's a flashback scene where you see, Alice Little from Alice in Wonderland. They used this thing called the Engine, which was created in Gulliver's Travels, and so there's all this stuff. I love old stories. When I did West of Sundown, I brought in, The Invisible Man and Dracula and Frankenstein. So I love this kind of stuff. I love taking the old stories and using them. So lots of Oz stuff, lots of Wonderland stuff, lots of Gulliver's Travels and Peter Pan, all that stuff, and of course my favorite Lovecraft. So there's all kinds of literature nerd shit in here, and I did it in such a way that I could make a bunch of flowery exposition and then just let Stefano draw the shit out of
it. Yeah, it is a gorgeous book, and the colors as well. It has this like a lot of earth tones, and which really it pulls you in, and it makes it feel, even though these are fantastical worlds, there's like groundedness to it, which I think then ties in the fantasy with kind of the real world kind of consequences. Because like you're saying, the immigrants, like she comes back and like you were mentioning, everybody thinks she was kidnapped, and she's trying to explain, no, I was in this fantasy world. No, everybody's like, why are you making up stories? So again, it's that idea which permeates a lot of your stories with something like revival, like we're talking about before, the real big idea, but then how it affects the individual, which is so interesting to me.
Yeah, and clearly most of my stuff is somehow the sort of wonder and potential of childhood in the harsh reality of adulthood. That seems to be all of my stories. Ouch. Oof.
Well, you're like we were talking about before. You're in demand, so you must be doing something right.
Yeah, well, we are all going right through that shit right now. So
yeah, 100%. Well, it's been fantastic catching up, Tim. You got so much going on. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with me. And we got to finish up by talking some holiday traditions. Christmas right around the corner here. So what are some of the traditions you had growing up? If any of those have continued in your own household with your family now, what are some of the things that you love about the holidays and the traditions that you use to celebrate?
I mean, so I've always been a big Christmas guy. And my wife, who wasn't very into Christmas stuff, has to endure all my shit, like all the stuff. Like I'm always like, we gotta go sledding. We gotta go we have to go to the Christkindlmarket, and like I'm every weekend from basically like mid-November to December. I'm always trying to do shit. Big fan of eggnog-based cocktails and all that dumb shit. So I'm dragging my wife through it for the past 10 years, and now we have a kid, and so all that is being jumped on her. So we did the elf on the shelf. Make sure she's okay. There's an elf on the shelf, and then we go real big on all the family stuff, and we have a big Christmas party coming up the 23rd. So we're always doing stuff, and I try to make, to me, like the two holidays that I hit hard is Halloween and Christmas, because they've got aesthetic, right? Like anything that has, is like red and green and lights and shit, or orange and black and costumes. Like I'm gonna go all the way in. So yeah.
What about Christmas music? Do you guys start playing the holiday?
Oh yes. The Elvis Christmas album is one of my favorite albums of all time. Just pure, not even as a holiday album. It's one of my favorites. Johnny Cash Christmas album is one of my favorites as well. So yes, I make everybody endure my shit. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Christmas is a huge deal around here as well. We have a full-size tree in every room. We had our annual cookies, cocoa, and cocktails party first Saturday of And we started doing this party because my wife would decorate like this every year. Ever since we've been together, she just loved Christmas, and I was like, man, this is so great. Our house is so beautiful. I love it. She has a little Christmas train and a village that we add a few buildings to every year. And I was like, but nobody sees it but us. So we started doing this party in 2018, and obviously, skipped a couple of years. I think 2020 and 2021. But yeah, just so other people, our coworkers and friends or whatever, get a chance to see it as well, because she does such an amazing job. Like all credit to her. I hang the lights outside. That's my thing, and I help her inside. She tells me specifically what to do so I don't mess it up, and I'm happy to help. But yeah, there's something about this season. And we could all use a little more happiness right now. What's going on in the world, right?
Some kindness, some cheer. Sit back and watch. I always watch Scrooged. That's my favorite Christmas movie with Bill Murray. I watch that every Christmas. I watch that one. So that one is perfect because he's like this corporate TV executive. He's a total bastard, and it's all about the rich and all that. It's perfect. Obviously it's a Dickens thing, but that made a big impression on me too. I love The Christmas Carol because it's also terrifying. It has a giant skull monster, so that it combines all the things I like into one place. So
yeah, they did a version. I think was it last year? Last year, or the year before. Apple TV did one, Spirited with.
I just watched it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see it?
It's way better than it should be.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It was, but you got to be a Will Ferrell guy, which my wife, she didn't really care for it. She's not a Will Ferrell person, so even with Ryan Reynolds, she was like, I don't know if I'll watch that again. But I was like, oh, it's a musical. It had Ryan Reynolds. I enjoyed it.
I did too. I was really surprised by it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty great. But anyway, like I said, I know how busy you are, so thanks again for joining me. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and yours. Hope it's a really great season for you.
Thanks so much, Jace. You too. And thanks for having me on. Let me rant. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always great to catch up, man. So on behalf of Tim and myself, we'll wish everybody out there happy holidays as well, whether you're checking us out on YouTube or the audio-only feed. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.